Welcome everyone as you're arriving. I'm really excited about today's session, and it's been a bit of a long time coming. Eddie and I have been talking on and off about putting this together, so I'm really happy that we can do this today. Before I have Eddie introduce himself, let me just go ahead and give you a little more information about myself. Okay, so my wife and I, for the last 8 years, have been running our own boutique MBA consultancy, and we're a little bit unusual in that we've been living out of the U.S. since 2010, actually, many countries, and right now I'm actually speaking to you from Albania, which is a wonderful country in Eastern Europe. If you haven't visited, I highly recommend. I have had incredible success with all of my clients. To date, 0 failures, everyone into top schools, a minimum of one of their target schools. So I'm very proud of that, including Cornell. With that, why don't I let Eddie go ahead and introduce yourself, and let me put you.
Right. Well, first of all, Jesse, thank you so much for hosting this session. I'm really excited, of course, to share more about Cornell regarding Johnson as well. Just a brief introduction. So my name is Eddie Asbie. I am the Executive Director of Admissions and Scholarship here at Johnson. I have been with Johnson for 12 years. When I first started here at Johnson back in 2012, started off as an assistant director, have moved my way up to the executive director role. Very fortunate enough to be able to lead such an amazing admissions team, but also be able to be able to provide guidance to candidates as you're looking towards an MBA, but also looking at Cornell as well. As I had mentioned, been here at Johnson for 12 years, higher ed, a total of 20 years, which I can't believe 20 years has passed really fast. Some other things, I love music. I love old school hip hop. I love jazz, R&B music. I'm a big sports fan, so big football, Buffalo Bills for anyone who watches American football out there. A huge NBA fan, LeBron James in particular. So putting a little bit out there about from a professional standpoint, personal standpoint, and then I'm a dad with 3 kids. So a little bit about myself.
Thank you so much, Eddie. Why don't I give everyone now kind of the overview of our session, and it is a very long one. We're trying to really deep dive as much as possible, and I appreciate everyone jumping on for this 90-minute session. On the off chance we finish early, but we wanted to make sure we have plenty of time. So to begin, the first half, Eddie and I are going to kind of do an interview and really try and deep dive into Cornell's program, as well as the entire admissions process. And while a lot of this will be Cornell specific, much of what we're covering would be applicable to any top school, especially when you see us get into the application. A lot of we're actually going to go piece by piece through the application itself, and there are many fields in there that, like employment history and various things that sometimes people aren't sure exactly what is best to put in these boxes, and what Eddie's going to talk about would be generally the same for any of these schools. So I hope everyone, even if you are unfortunately not a Cornell applicant, while I encourage you to, will find it really helpful. And after that, well, actually I should say, if you want to ask questions during this first 45 minutes, we're going to encourage that as well, especially as we kind of get to a kind of stopping point between things we're talking about. Feel free to put questions into the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them as we go. After that, in the second half, we have Isaac, who is going to be our guinea pig. He's going to be our interviewee for the about 15-minute mock interview that Eddie's going to do. And he only agreed to do this about 15 minutes ago because the interviewee that I had just had an emergency. They're fine, but just so everyone knows, he's had zero time to prep. As a deferred applicant, he's far away from the deadline, so he's not even at the stage of applying. So everyone be easy on him. So after that, we're going to go through a kind of analysis, have Eddie give his thoughts on how that went, specific answers, and get into, from their side, from the AdCom side, how would they be viewing this, and what kind of things would Eddie be passing on to the file, right? What kind of notes and comments and these kind of things. And finally, we'll just do a complete open Q&A. So that's the basic plan. With that, let's get into the intro to the main program. So Eddie and I talked about having an overview first. So Eddie, why don't you just give us the overview of the various programs before we start really trying to deep dive into the actual experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that you'll hear me consistently say is how I think grateful I am to be once again working for an institution here at Cornell, knowing that there are various different offerings available. For my team in particular, I oversee the 2-year residential MBA program, which is pretty much more of your traditional MBA program. With that 2-year experience, one of the things about that program in particular, our class this past year enrolled a class of about 280 plus in the class. And of course, with that 2-year MBA program, you will typically see students who are coming from various different professional backgrounds, definitely different countries and different representation out there, but also I think with the 2-year program in particular, you will see those who aren't coming just from business backgrounds, but other areas as well. There is also a 1-year Cornell Tech MBA program located on Roosevelt Island in New York City. This program in particular allows students to bridge the gap between business, the digital economy, where this program is approximately 90 plus students in the program, but once again, looking for those that have tech experience, and of course, post-MBA are looking to go into the tech side of things. Kind of going back to the 2-year program and also kind of bridging that gap with the Cornell Tech 1-year MBA program, there is also a 1+1 option where a student may be able to do 1 full year in the 2-year MBA program located here in Ithaca, New York. And then in that 2nd year, they would go on to do a full year in New York City, which of course I'm happy to chat about a little bit further. Other programs that we have executive MBA programs. There are specialized master's programs as well. One of the things that I can't stress enough to you as you start to really think about what program makes sense to you is to continue to have these conversations, to join these sessions. As you're thinking about the program that best fits you, whether it is a 1-year option because of your extensive experience or because you are looking at cutting costs, whether it is a 2-year MBA program because you are looking to make a career switch and that you need the 2 years of networking, but also are looking at that internship opportunity, or maybe you're someone who has extensive years of experience and you are at more of a senior management type position and an executive MBA program makes sense. I would say, once again, continue to do your research on what we offer. But once again, most of what I mentioned today will really surround the 2-year MBA program here in Ithaca.
Excellent. All right. So now we're going to try and really dive into the nitty gritty of the program itself. And so Eddie's agreed to kind of do a case study where we're imagining this student who is going into the program, and we're going to go kind of term by term and cover all of the elements that a student would actually go through. So where would be the best place to begin, Eddie?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and really talk about what that 2-year journey looks like. And one of the things that we want to make sure that you are doing is really, even before the program starts, that you are prepared, that you have a really good understanding of how Cornell is really going to prepare you, both from the academic side of things, but also from the career prep side of things. So there are some opportunities where there are some pre-MBA recruitment opportunities even before you start on campus. So for example, if you are a candidate who was a part of Forte, which really supports women in business and gender equity. If you are a part of Forte, there is a pre-MBA conference that happens even before the program actually starts. Or if you're a candidate who applies through the consortium, which is another avenue of applying to business school, there are those pre-MBA recruiting opportunities. But also our Career Management Center is reaching out to our students in advance to, one, make sure that what you indicated in your application is what you want to do, but also to start giving you some tips before you step on campus here to really get the ball rolling. Once you actually start here on campus, of course, you go through your traditional recruitment, orientation process, where you are meeting with the entire class of 280 plus and going through leadership opportunities. Once again, just understanding the basics of what the curriculum is going to look like, ways that you can expand and really have that flexibility within your curriculum, making sure that you get the most out of your experience. Just know that in your first year, which I'm sure many of you know, the first year can be very intense. It's a huge transition, especially if you're coming from the either academic setting still, whether you're coming from the professional setting, whether it's just making the move to Ithaca. So there's a team here that's really helping guiding you in every step of the way, so that once you get here, you feel comfortable, you feel supported, you know what resources are available, but once again, that you're able to hit the ground running. In that first semester of the fall semester of your first year, I think it's pretty standard, like most business schools, where you are going through that core curriculum, understanding the basic business fundamentals. So taking courses like an accounting course, stats courses, operations courses, and once again, really getting your feet wet with these basic business courses. And once again, pretty standard like most programs, but you are doing this while working with your core team. Your core team is typically made of about 4 or 5 students from various different backgrounds. And the way these groups are actually created is there is an algorithm that's run for about 24 hours by taking some of the most unique aspects of your application. This algorithm runs for about 24 hours and it produces various groups of about 4 or 5 students from different cultures, academic backgrounds, work experience, gender, you name it, to put together these core team. And that core team is your core team that entire semester, where you work on various different projects, whether this is your go-to group, whether there are situations that you're going through and you need advice. One thing that our students will say is, there are a lot that they learn from their core team, but there can also be some challenges. And I think the core team experience is really designed to help you work through business problems and ultimately come up with business solutions. As of course, in the business world, there are a lot of challenges that you will face. In the spring semester of your first year is what we call our immersion learning program. And I do believe our immersion learning is an opportunity or something that really does set us apart within our curriculum. And the immersion gives you the opportunity of course, immersing yourself within your particular career path. So there is an immersion focusing on digital technology. There is an immersion focusing on consulting, an immersion focusing on investment banking and corporate finance. There's a customized option out there as well. And what it is advanced level courses in that one particular area for the entire semester. You're taking courses, you're working on actual projects. Some of the projects might be with Fortune 500 companies. They might be with small local businesses here in the Ithaca area. But you're working on these projects, you're getting feedback from business professionals out there, site visits, and what it's really designed to do is prepare you for that summer internship. One of the things that I love to mention is that with the immersion itself, it gives you that opportunity, especially if you're a career switcher, to have this experience, for a full semester before you go into that internship so that you're able to hit the ground running. After that first year of your core, the immersion, there's your summer internship, which you will work with professional clubs and organizations. You'll definitely work with the Career Management Center to help guide you in finding that internship. And then in your second year, that's where you really see the flexibility in the customization of your overall, curriculum itself. So if you are someone who wants to take advantage of elective courses at the hotel school, the College of Engineering, the law school, if you are, invited to do the 1+1 program and you're spending that full year at Cornell Tech or spending a semester taking advantage of one of our intensives, our FinTech intensive or Culture and Media Technology intensive over at the Cornell Tech campus, that also gives you that opportunity. Or you have the opportunity of taking advantage of international opportunities where you spend a semester studying abroad. So within the 2-year journey that you have here, notice that there's a lot of great structure, but also flexibility as you are also working with some of the best and brightest faculty members out there, but also a community that's really there to pay it forward and to be able to be mentors and to provide that guidance to you. So I'll stop right there, Jesse. I'm sure I could keep going, but once again, one of the things that I will say about our program is, once again, just thinking about the flexibility, the support that you're going to have here, but also knowing that you have world-renowned faculty members that are leading the charge here.
Thanks so much, Eddie. And if anyone does have questions about the program at this point, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll try and answer them. I see a question about the GMAT waivers. We are going to get to that, but that will, we've got a plan to talk about that later. So as we're discussing, if you have questions immediately about this, put them in. If you have questions for later, then put them in as well. So Eddie, with those groups, I understand that the work can be, the workload can be incredible. So when you have your 4 or 5 person, highly diverse groups, how are they actually tackling projects?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think, when it comes to just group assignments, so think about some of the basic group assignments that you may have, let's say an operations course out there, or if there are case competitions, there are many case competitions that you have within that first year. That is going to be your group that you are working with. And the case competitions could focus more on, there's a crisis management challenge, for example, that we have where you're put into, you're acting as if you are top executives for a Fortune 500 company. Your company goes through a crisis. How do you handle that with running your business, but also, making sure that your employees are taken care of? Or from a PR standpoint, making sure that you alleviate those concerns from, the customer's standpoint. So, your group is there to really help guide and brainstorm, ideas and solutions. And the way that I think about the core team experience, and as I had mentioned before, when I think about the 280, they're coming from so many different backgrounds. So your core team, for example, might be an investment banker, it might be a consultant, it might be a lawyer, it might be an engineer. It might be someone who is coming from the educational sector. The way that everyone thinks is so different, because the way a lawyer may think versus an engineer may be completely different, but it's ultimately how do you work together as a group to come up with the best solution to these various problems and different solutions.
And what are some of the other ways that people are getting involved? Maybe talk about some of the clubs and the way those kind of things work, and when you can join them, and what the process is, and what you need to do if you wanted to become a leader in any of these organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot. Once again, I think there's a lot that Johnson has to offer when it comes to student involvement. And one, I can start just from on the admission standpoint, and then of course we'll talk a little bit more about clubs and organizations, et cetera. But our students have a pay it forward mentality. They really think about when they were in your shoes right now, as you're applying to business school, as you're looking at an MBA, there was someone that helped guide them along the way. There are many students who are jump on a call, help do interview prep with them as they're thinking about, applying to business school or preparing for that interview, or what is it really like living in Ithaca versus a larger metropolitan city? They're very honest, they're very transparent. So I think one of the ways that they're always looking at getting involved is really talking to you about their experience. They love to share more about their experience because we want more of you into the program, but also we want to make sure that we have the right people in the program. So one, they're always helping from an admission standpoint, whether it is some of our sessions. If you go onto our website, we have Ask Admission sessions that are hosted by our students. If you go onto our website, there's our student ambassador page. It outlines their profile, their background, and it gives you a way to reach out to them to learn more about the program and the community. So that's just one way. There are clubs and organizations. We have over 70 different clubs and organizations, anything from professional clubs and organizations, social. There are clubs for families. There are clubs out there that for your pets. Like, once again, having 70 different clubs and organizations, I think just shows how involved our students are. But they are also looking at, once again, being these leaders and thinking about different incentives and initiatives to really be able to help their classmates grow, but also to get the word out about what their organizations have to offer, ways of getting involved with that, whether you're a first year and it's just, indicating your overall interest. Some of the clubs and organizations may have membership fees associated to it, some may not. But during this time of year, especially for our incoming MBAs, they're actually going to get ready to apply for leadership roles within these clubs and organizations to really be able to think about ways to, once again, be a leader, but also move these clubs and organizations forward. A couple other things. There are second years who are mentors to our first years. They're called our CWGs, our career working groups, that are helping you in the recruiting process. There are our Johnson Leadership Fellows, who are second year students who are mentors to those core teams. So as I had mentioned, those 4 or 5 students, they're going to go through a lot of ups and downs throughout the year, but they have a second year who is a mentor to them throughout this process. There are students who sit on the board of local nonprofits here in the Ithaca area, which is our Johnson Board Fellows, where they are really being leaders within these nonprofits to really be able to help them with various initiatives, business plans, and any other consulting opportunities with these organizations as well. So those are just some of the things that come to mind of ways that our students are involved. But once again, they are very active. And once again, I would encourage you, as you're going through this process, to reach out to them so that they can share more.
I actually deal with a ton of international applicants, as I think you know, Eddie. And so I wonder, for the non-native English speakers, I always hear from mine who are, at advanced level English. They've got, TOEFLs 105, 108, 110. And many of them still tell me in that first term in particular, they struggle a bit, right? They've got the double challenge of trying to listen and learn and also literally keep up and understand everything. So what are any kind of resources that are there to help those folks, and any other thoughts on what the experience is like for non-native speakers?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, and I think this is a great question out there. I think one, from as far as resources, one, there are different clubs and organizations, and once again, and it could be based off of region, or once again, based off of professional interests, etc. But one, there are students who are, who have gone through that experience, and one, they are accessible. They are here to make sure that you have everything that you need and to be supportive in that area, just to make sure that, once again, you understand, once again, the resources that are available, events that are available, but also too, like, if you need that level of comfort too, there are many current students in particular that are here to share more and to really be able to help you position yourself the best way possible. But also there's our student services team. Our student services team is here that works, and they are more of a liaison between our students, our faculty. If there are resources that you need, really just to help, even if it's English and you want to brush up on that, there is a program and a partnership that we have with a third-party vendor called Bespeak, that some of our current students, even though they're in the program, they're still going through this as they're brushing up on English. There's a career management center that helps guide you about things that you should be considering, especially as many of our international students are looking to work, here in the U.S. post MBA. So they're here to help guide you and to really talk about, these are the things that you really should consider, but also being very realistic with you about what companies are hiring, international students, here domestically, or here are alums that you should connect with, etc. There are, of course, members of our student services team, our Office of Diversity and Inclusion, that's also there as a resource to make sure that you understand too, like, from a cultural standpoint, that we're all, that there's a, from a cultural standpoint, as far as, cultural norms that may happen here, but also we want to know more about your culture as well. And we know that, with business, you're going to have that opportunity of really networking and working with different clienteles from different areas of the world, etc. So, we want to make sure that our resources, whether it is through the Career Management Center, our Office of Diversity and Inclusion, Student Services, or even our professional and student clubs and organizations, that they're here to support you and really give you the resources needed to be successful.
Thank you very much. I wanted to move on to, you touched a little bit on kind of some things related to recruiting, and I'd love to hear more about what the process from the beginning, like how early do you start getting into applying for internships? What's that process like? And being out in Utica, you have the two campuses, which I've always been interested in how this comes into play on the recruiting side. Is everyone just coming to Utica if you're in the regular 2-year program, or are you also getting recruiting opportunities in the New York City campus?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so the Ithaca area, I would say, I think it's always one of the biggest misconceptions about our location, is that our students may have a hard time recruiting, et cetera. And there's a couple things that I would say when it comes to that. One, I think that employers really understand the quality of what a Cornellian is. And our students are going to the best of the best companies out there in some of the prime locations that are out there. And, but also too, like our alums are looking at finding ways of once again giving back. So, they're working for, Bain and company. They're working for or Bain and McKinsey. They're working for JP Morgan. They're working for the Amazons out there. You name it. They're coming back on campus, one, for corporate briefings to prepare our students for interviews. Many of them are actually on campus right now, and they've been on campus for the last month or so, recruiting students as well. So know that even though Ithaca is about 4 hours north of New York City, know that there will be a combination of things from a recruiting standpoint. Once again, companies coming here to recruit. There might be virtual opportunities where you're conducting those interviews, and please know that I think post-COVID that is pretty normal and standard at this time. But I think as you progress further and further in the interview process, there are opportunities for you to travel, and it's more than just New York City. It is kind of all over, mostly domestically, but know that from a recruiting standpoint, once again, some of this starts even before you step foot on campus here. And once again, that's led by our Career Management Center, which our Career Management Center has amazing professionals, many who are coming from the industry, many who have networks, but also work very closely with these top executives as well as our alums, representing their companies, to one, make sure that you have a clear understanding of what that company is looking for, what positions are available, having an understanding of, are you a good cultural fit for that company as well? Do you have the technical skills needed to be successful? And the Career Management Center is going to guide you throughout your 2 years in the MBA, even post MBA. There's a group that also works with alums. So, whether something happens where you do lose a position, or maybe you are looking at a complete career switch even after the MBA, the Career Management Center is there to guide you, along with the professional clubs and organizations as well. So that's just a little bit about the recruiting process. But once again, the one thing that I really want you to take away from this is, because of our location, I don't think that that's anything to worry about. Our institution is a global brand. Once again, you're being taught by some of the best and the brightest. And then, even just looking on our website with where our statistics are from a recruiting standpoint, I think you can see how successful our students have been.
I've actually, from conversations with some other directors as well of rural schools, one thing they've told me, and I wonder if this is true at Cornell, is if you're in the city, the major recruiters can come in for a half day and go back to their offices, right? But if they want to come out to Utica, they're making a special trip. So most of the time they'll spend, at least one overnight. I've heard lots of stories of some people, spending even a week and getting involved in activities with students. Is that kind of the situation that you have there?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the best parts about it. And it's been so nice, really over this last month of how many alums in particular just stop into my office just to say hi and reminding me that, hey, I'm on campus for, 2, 3 days. And outlining, the corporate briefings that they're having, the receptions and the dinners that they're having, the interviews that they're conducting, and the coffee chats that they're having with our students as well. So, once again, I think that that's one of the beauties of, once again, having a location like Ithaca is, having the recruiters spend some, a noticeable amount of time here on campus, but also it's a good opportunity for them, and for companies to really reconnect with Cornell. There's many times where it's just providing them an update on what's happening from the admission side and changes to our process, but also for us to have a better understanding of what are they looking for, when hiring MBAs as well.
Well, time is just flying here, so
Yes.
I want to make sure and give you some time to talk about the new deferred program before we go on to actually looking at the application itself. So, tell us all about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those of you that may not know, this past year, actually over these last couple of months, we officially launched a deferred admissions program, which is called the Cornell Future Leaders Program. And this program is really designed for undergraduate seniors or those who are in their first year of a graduate program without professional experience, for them to really be thinking about an MBA, but also to receive admission to an MBA program or to our MBA program. The one thing about this program is that for those who are, of course, admitted into the program, you are required to go get at least 2 years of professional experience, but up to 5 years of experience. And we will defer your admission between that time frame, knowing that you have a spot in our 2-year MBA program here in Ithaca. One of the questions that some of the questions that I've been answering is, once again, why the program itself, and what sparked that interest. One, I think, just thinking about the students that we have here, we have a very competitive business school here at Cornell. There are some great students, and even students from other schools that are applying directly into our MBA programs as we speak. You'll probably see on our website that our average student has about 5 years of professional experience before getting into an MBA. But there are some great candidates, once again, that you're coming from undergrad, but we also understand the value of having that work experience before you start in the MBA program. I think that work experience is going to really be able to give you the opportunity of really making a contribution, in the classroom setting or in that core team experience, or also just thinking from a recruiting standpoint. We know that a lot of companies out there do require professional experience, at a specific level. I think, one of the things that we don't want you to do is, come and get an MBA, not have work experience. And then when you recruit, you're still recruiting at a very entry level position, where many of our MBAs are recruiting at, upper management level position post MBA. But this deferred admission will give you that opportunity of having an offer, but then also, once again, going to get some professional experience under your belt. So that's a little bit about the program. It is a question that we will ask in the application. If you are interested in our deferred admissions program, and in there, we will review you as far as one, your, of course, academic background, which we want to have full confidence that you're going to come in our program, do well. Hopefully you have some internship experience, research experience, a sense of what your MBA goals may look like. And of course, we also realize that things may change throughout time, but there are certain things that we're looking for from an analytical side, professional side, but also that grit and determination as well.
I have a million questions.
Go for it.
Well, I would love to, but because of time, I think we should go on to the application questions.
Okay.
And if people have more questions about the deferred program at the end Q&A, then that's great. We're going to be happy to come back to it. But I just want to make sure we have enough time for everything. So coming around to the application itself, which again, I said, I think this is something that is helpful for all schools for most of these things. So I wanted to go through each of the points in here that has any kind of text box. So there was already a question about the test waivers, and
Yes.
why don't you explain kind of how that works and the pros and cons? You and I talked about it's a double-edged sword, and
Sure.
how you then actually go about explaining it in a way that is convincing.
Yeah, absolutely. So the test waiver is really designed for those that can clearly demonstrate strong quantitative ability, and strong quantitative ability. And what we're looking for is strong undergraduate performances. If you have any graduate experience, strong quantitative ability in your graduate experience. If there's certifications that you have with a quant focus, but also to professional experiences, et cetera. So we know that there are a lot of candidates who, from an academic standpoint, come from competitive schools. Once again, strong academics, work experience really shows their ability to do well. That's the type of candidate that we're looking for that should consider the waiver itself. If you're someone who, once again, are not coming from a quantitative background or very limited work experience from the quantitative side, I think this is probably a better option for you to consider taking the test itself. In our application, though, there is a brief question. Hopefully you can see it here, where it's a short statement of why you see yourself, how do you see yourself flourishing in the academic environment, here at Johnson. At the end of the day, I do believe that there are some candidates, once again, who have just strong backgrounds, whether they take the test or not. And we know that they're going to do well on two folds. One, from an academic standpoint, but even still from a recruiting standpoint. If you're someone who's looking to make a complete career switch in one area versus another, especially if it does have a strong quantitative upside of things, once again, I think, I would encourage you to really consider if the waiver really makes sense for you or not. But your rationale is very important. In that brief statement itself, you probably want to talk about maybe some of the courses that you have taken. And of course, your transcript is there to indicate that and to highlight, what grades you received in those areas. But once again, maybe it's also elaborating further on your professional experience, certifications that you may have, a CPA, CFA, for example, out there. But I will say that the waiver is, once again, it's not for everyone. Also, so this is where I need you to use your best judgment on the waiver itself, and know that with our waiver process, it is in the application. So you're not going to receive an answer if you've been granted the waiver or not before you hit submit. It is after you've hit submit, where we do a thorough review. Our timeline is usually within about 5 to 7 business days after you've hit submit for us to let you know if you've been granted the waiver or not. If you are denied the waiver, your application will be moved to incomplete status until you submit a test score.
All right, and given time, why don't we do this one more, and then we'll shift over to the mock interview, and then
Okay.
I hope we have enough time to come back to all of this, but it's just flying by, isn't it?
Yes.
So with this page, you're talking about the entries in employment, right? And people often ask, okay, you have my resume, so you're asking for my responsibilities. What should I be writing that is, should I just be copying and pasting that, or should I be writing something entirely different? So what kind of guidance would you give them on this question? I'll get to it's that one. And then it's also, please explain the reason for leaving this position.
Yeah.
Which people should know it can mean in the same company too, right? This is just promotions or switching companies altogether.
Right, absolutely. So when I think about the resume itself, the resume, we're looking for one-page resumes, all right? And, that one-page resume is valuable real estate out there. But in the application, you may have worked multiple jobs and once again, for multiple companies. And on that resume, you're only able to, let's say, outline maybe a few companies or a few experiences that you've had. This application gives you the opportunity to really be able to add every company role and responsibility that's out there. Some of it, yeah, it might, make sense for you just to copy and paste kind of what your responsibilities may be. I know that a lot on the resume, a lot of students may talk a little bit more about their accomplishments, their achievements, but also quantifying their work experience. Whereas in this section, you may do some of that as well, but also really breaking down what the responsibilities may be. But also, we want to make sure that things line up. There are many times where I look at a resume, but also look at what is indicated here in the work experience, and there leaves a lot of questions. Or, for example, you may indicate that you worked at X company from January 2022 to December 2022. There is a 6-month gap, and of course, your resume doesn't explain what that 6-month gap is. But in this work section, that's your opportunity to elaborate further as far as what happened during that time. The one thing that you don't want to do from an admission standpoint is have us wondering what happened during that time. So briefly explain why you left that role. Maybe it was because of a promotion. Maybe it was because you worked in the tech industry and there were layoffs. Maybe it was because of health reasons. But briefly explain so that we're able to have a clear understanding of what happened, and then we're able to move forward.
Thanks very much. So let's go ahead and now move on to the mock interview, which I know everyone is really, really excited about, including myself. It's you can watch mock interviews with MBA admissions consultants like me in plenty of places, but it's rare to really have the privilege of seeing an interview take place with an actual admissions director. As I mentioned earlier, some people might have come late. We have Isaac, who has volunteered very, very kindly to be our interviewee. And I also want to emphasize that he only volunteered like 15 minutes before this session because the original person had an emergency. So he's had no time to prepare. He's a deferred applicant. It's not even time to be preparing. So give him plenty of, leeway. So with that, why don't I turn it over to you two?
Right. Great. Thanks so much, Jesse. I appreciate it. And to Isaac, thanks so much for joining today for this mock interview session. And just to kind of preface this to the rest of the group, just know that with interviews, you should really be prepared for to really know your experience inside and out, but also be prepared to answer questions that may come about from your conversation. So Isaac, we're going to go ahead and jump into this. But first of all, thanks so much for your time. I'm really excited for you to really pursue your MBA. As you know, my name is Eddie Asbie, representing Cornell's MBA team, and really excited for you to pursue your education, thinking about the MBA itself. So with that being said, I do want to give you the opportunity to just briefly introduce yourself by giving me an overview of your background, both educationally, but then any professional experience, internship experience that you may have.
All right. Hello, my name is Isaac Jerson. I'm a senior at Maine Maritime Academy, graduating in December. I've had the chance to complete 4 different internships. Most recently, I was in Colorado, working for an air compressor manufacturing company in their supply chain department. And currently, I am working for my school directly with the president of the academy as his operations intern. And I've also had the opportunity to complete several different extracurriculars. I was the student trustee for a year, which was an appointment by the governor of Maine to spend a year on their board of trustees, which had me a full voting position on essentially the board of directors of the academy. And I'm also the Young Professionals Chair for the New England Roundtable of the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals. That's a little bit about me.
All right. So Isaac, it sounds like you're staying pretty busy between your involvement within your undergraduate setting, but also you had mentioned the 4 internships that you 4 internships that you had conducted as well. So can you maybe talk a little bit more about that internship experience? Maybe some of the things that you've learned, from one internship to the next. I'm sure that, each, company or position that you were a part of, there was some level of growth and experience. But can you maybe talk about some of the things that you walked away from, that internship experience?
Happy to. So I started my internships right after my freshman year. And the biggest thing right from the very beginning, working for Bath Iron Works, they're a naval shipyard, was learning more about sort of process improvement, how to make you're doing things better. I worked on a process improvement project with their industrial engineering team and was able to develop a macro that cut out 1/3 of their report building time. So I really liked that. I got some Excel experience, some ERP system experience, as well as that process improvement side. Then moving on to my next internship, I worked for a smaller startup style company I called Strategic Maintenance Solutions. And where I learned more about working and spending time on professional development when you don't really have a lot of direction. They had a lot of different interns and not a lot of people to support the internship program. So I had to succeed as best as I could in an area of little supervision, which I spent time networking with individuals within the company and helping them with projects where I could. And then my internship, after my junior year, that pulled me out of my comfort zone, sent me to a completely different state, right? Which was really great, right, for my personal development. And I also got to dive into their sourcing process and actually develop standard operating procedures for the company because they were a smaller company looking to grow and they needed to standardize their process. And then on the operations side, which I'm continuing to work for, I got to see sort of those high level decisions where sometimes people seem to say, oh, they didn't think of this when they made that decision. Or if I were in that position, I would have made a better decision. And I got to see sort of those decisions being made and really get an experience of seeing how much goes into so many of these decisions that you don't see. So that's my path.
All right, great. Thank you so much for sharing that. So let's kind of talk a little bit more about the MBA side of this. So just hearing about your experience, why do you feel that the MBA is something that will add value to you both personally and professionally?
Well, I would say I'm specifically targeting a deferred MBA program because uh, I, I want to spend that deferred period engaging in a lot of different industries and a lot of different functions throughout the supply chain field, which is what my background is. And I think normally you don't get that opportunity to develop that strong foundation of breadth that a lot of companies feel like it would be appreciate their employees to get. Because as you move up in higher level decisions, you need to know how each of those impacts. So I want to pursue a lot of different functions of that nature right from the beginning. And then I would be able to go to the MBA. So I've used it to pivot my profile more into the supply chain consulting or process improvement sector once I've developed that experience, build a network, build a lot of higher level education experience from those experienced professors, and then move into a role in the supply chain consulting side, and eventually start my own firm, more focusing on the ethical supply chain consulting side.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you, elaborating a little bit further, especially on your short-term goals, which you had mentioned. You're looking to transition more into the supply chain consulting side. And then once again, long-term goal, you're looking to start your own consultancy, correct?
Yes.
All right, great. So just thinking about your goals of supply chain consulting, what do you feel are some of the skill sets that are needed to obtain your short-term and long-term goals?
I would say something that is an important skill that I need to develop is I'm very good at speaking up. That's something I even as the youngest of seven, you have to talk loud. But I have had to work, and I'm working to develop more on figuring out the quiet people in the room who have a lot to offer, and being able to make them feel more comfortable, more engaged with the process, to learn from them in order to best achieve the most efficient process. Because a lot of the times the quiet ones are the ones you want to talk to, in my opinion. So that's a skill I need to work on. And I think an MBA where I'm surrounded by a lot of professional people will let me do that.
I completely agree with that. As an MBA, once again, working with many of your classmates, once again, business professionals, getting that hands-on experience will definitely help you speak up, but also help you make the right decisions, especially as you eventually start your own consultancy. So thank you for that. So I do have a question, though, because I do believe that many MBAs do very well in the recruitment process. So, of course, anyone who's looking to make that transition into consulting or any other industry, but an MBA also doesn't guarantee you the industry, the company, et cetera, that you're looking to go into. So just say if supply chain consulting doesn't work out the way that you hope, what is your backup plan?
For if I don't go into supply chain consulting at all, I would say, sorry, would you like to? Okay. I would say that since supply chain consulting as a whole was interesting to me because it would involve a variety of different issues and work with a variety of different companies, I think my backup plan in a related field would be more on that sort of process improvement side for specific companies. So sort of more working on internal procedures instead of broader working for a variety of companies. And I've had some great conversations with process improvement specialists that I've had to engage with on the supply chain side. That they love that side of things. So it'd be more internal versus external if external didn't work out.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right, so I want to just transition a little bit more about kind of more of leadership. So one of the things that we know that of course, you're looking to come to a great institution. You are looking at getting a great job, but we also know that you are looking to develop as a leader. And I think one of the things that you had mentioned regarding your last internship in particular, you had talked about some of the leadership that you saw, the decision-making process, etc. But how would you describe your leadership style and once again, the things that are needed to be a strong leader, as you're thinking about the MBA?
Okay. I would say that my sort of driving force as a leader is sort of advocacy, sort of being able to give people who can't or won't speak up for themselves a voice, a sort of a mouthpiece to that end. And that comes from just growing up. I had a stutter and I was the one who didn't want to speak up. And once I sort of worked through that and was able to develop that, I wanted to share that with others. So that's my goal for that, was to be that mouthpiece. And then during my time through my undergraduate, I did learn, as I mentioned, sort of that you wanting to learn from more people who are sort of quieter. You don't need to just be the mouthpiece. You also need to have just as perceptive ears. You were given two ears in one mouth. So that's my goal.
Great. And I appreciate you sharing more, especially from a personal side too, about, leadership, but also once again, the stutter as well. So I am, as far as my next question is going to be really more about, really why, and of course, this is very general, not specific to Cornell, but, why the particular program that you are applying to. Are there elements about that community, about the program as well, that really has sparked your interest in the overall that specific program?
I believe you're referring to MBAs, right? Just in general.
Yeah. So typically I would ask you a little bit more of why Cornell, but being that once again, I know that this is something that is you're just jumping on board with this interview. Mm-hmm. This is kind of more of a why. Why are you choosing the schools that you have chose, or the deferred admissions program that you have been admitted to?
Mm-hmm. I think something that has been big for the schools that I've looked at, and also actually Cornell follows that line, is a school that sort of its students want to care and want to develop sort of that mentorship side of things, or want to make everyone around them better, not just themselves. I think that's a very important thing for me. I follow the line of, I hear people saying, they're this self-made man. I don't believe in self-made. I believe that that there are some people who are able to overcome major adversity and succeed against the odds, but somebody sort of gave them that shot, and that is a big. So that's why mentorship has been big for me, and I've had a lot of mentors already in my young life that have been able to tell me things like, Isaac, you sound arrogant right now. You need to check your tone. Or, Isaac, you're completely sort of missing the point in what they were telling you. And I like that they spent their time when they had already succeeded to sort of take a step back and help the next person in line.
Great, thank you. As you start thinking about the communities that you see yourself being a part of, are there any specific clubs or organizations that you see yourself taking leadership roles in?
I would say, because of my interest in the consulting side of things, definitely sort of that professional development consulting side. But also I have had much success sort of in my undergraduate and other areas in the student government side. So I think I would work to engage on the student government front. At Maine Maritime, I sort of rewrote their constitution with, of course, the assistance from the other boards, and sort of have developed their financial bylaws to make sure that the money trail is accurate and effective. So I just found that you know, if you can run it more efficiently and you can help support people's hobbies, which is usually that's where the centralized thing is, the student government is focused on helping all the other clubs pursue their hobbies, then that's the best place to be, in my opinion.
Okay, great. Just going to ask you a couple more questions, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up the interview to answer other questions out there, etc. But if I had to maybe reach out to a former supervisor, maybe even just a close classmate, colleague, how do you feel they'd best describe you professionally?
I would say that the two words that you might get, especially because if a Cornell person is thinking they're going to be nicer about me, is passionate and curious. I'm very, like I said, I love engaging in what I do, and I'm very interested in pretty much everything. So it works out well as I find something I'm curious in, which I'm curious about everything, and then I fully want to drive in and learn as much as possible and have as much impact as possible.
All right, great. And then my last question for you is there anything that you didn't have the opportunity to discuss that you really want the admissions committee to know? This is your opportunity to provide that your additional thoughts on that.
I would say that I was wanted to give a sort of a better clue on why I sort of cared about that sort of process improvement, that efficiency side of things. As I mentioned, I grew up in a house of six siblings, and sort of that development of those processes and making that more efficient was the only way that my sort of family was able to operate smoothly. Well, smoothly is a bit of a term, but I would just say that this efficiency and that process improvement side of thing isn't just that curiosity, passing interest type of thing. That has been my driving force from my youth through high school into college, and will continue on regardless if I end up in an MBA or not. I will be pursuing that area of professional development.
All right. Well, Isaac, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you jumping in here to conduct this mock interview, and of course the opportunity to learn more about you. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Eddie. It was a pleasure.
Can I ask you to ask just one or two more on the behavioral side? Just because I had a couple of people asking, is an interview like this with no behaviorals like a job interview? And Cornell would include some, right? So if
Absolutely.
one or two, Isaac, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I can do that.
I'm going to torture you a little more. So
of course, you got me up here, so you might as well.
Yes. I'm sorry. So you want me to ask a couple more?
Any behavioral questions? Yeah, just so the audience can get an idea of the different style of questions, and then when you talk about your evaluation, you can kind of throw that in as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me about a times,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So definitely, yes. Those are questions that are put in here, and once again, to make it very clear, there's so much more that. Once again, to have a full, thorough review of what your write-up, there are things that your supervisor might say in here. So, there might be a question for Isaac. So, Isaac, tell me about a time where you created or you led a project. You led a project. You went through the project. It was successful, but it is something that you do not want to do again.
Ooh, that's That's hard.
Sorry, that's like a kind of a curveball, putting you on the spot on that one. But
I was going to say the leading a project, the thing I could have talked about, the not wanting to do again. I would say that when I was at Bath Iron Works, and so working with that industrial engineering department, I loved that process improvement side of it. I loved that project, but I spent way too much time, in my opinion, behind a computer doing the coding side of it. I didn't get a chance to engage with a lot of people and in meetings and sort of getting that full perspective. So while I like process improvement, please take me away from behind the computer. Let me see people.
And I think another question could be, tell me about a time when you had an ideal that you felt was the right idea, but it was shut down, and how did you handle that situation?
So from sophomore year at Maine Maritime, going into my junior year, I was confident that the school needed an international experience program. And I, as a sophomore, decided to try and make that happen. And after getting some experience and talking to even some other companies and area and schools, I went to my department head, and he was like, "Absolutely not. I don't have time for that," which is fair. They were very busy individuals, and I gotta say, at that age type of thing, I was frustrated because, once again, I hadn't had that experience of seeing that high level decision making and seeing what all that went into. So I would say I was frustrated, sort of pushed back on his decision, and then eventually, when he sort of explained that sort of viewpoint as to why he couldn't do it, I sort of accepted it in stride and tried to help in other ways, and that was there. So it was an important thing for me when sort of getting that, and that no is followed by the why.
All right, great. Thank you, Isaac. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you jumping in on this interview and sharing more. I know that you're going to do great just moving forward. So once again, thanks so much for your time. Jesse, I'll hand it back over to you.
Yeah. I'm thrilled, Isaac. Again, thanks so much. I'll put the spotlight off here, and Eddie and I can talk about it. Talk to you soon. So Eddie, what do you think, and what kind of things would you be noting in your evaluation from that?
Yeah, absolutely. So and once again, I think it's really important that you have a clear understanding of what every school's interview process looks like, the information that they have in front of them, etc. We make it very clear on our end that our interviews are to be conversational. I don't think that it is, there are certain things, of course, that I want to clearly be able to get out of you. I want to know, one, who you are. I want to know about your professional experience. I want to know why an MBA. I want to know why this is the right time for you to get an MBA. And I want to know why Johnson is the right school for you. And of course, if I had a full application from Isaac, there are going to be many things that I'm looking at. I am looking at career progression and trajectory. I'm looking at rationales of why you left one role to the next. I'm looking at transferable skills, especially if you're looking to make the transition from an engineering role to, a consulting or education to investment banking. I'm looking for those transferable skills out there. But what I will say is, I think Isaac, I think you did a great job of just showing us who you are, and really just talking more about why the MBA makes sense. I know that there are some things that you really did highlight as far as, the leadership side of things, decision making, but also really just the business concepts and ideas of what supply chain consulting consists of as well. So, some of the feedback that I would give in this in particular, and we can start with more with just the beginning. I think that the beginning is an area, once again, for you to really be able to, to really highlight, once again, who you are, and once again, what your professional background looks like. And this may be a question that I always ask right off the bat, for you to tell us more about yourself from an academic standpoint and a professional standpoint. So I would say try to be as clear and concise when answering this question. I do think that from that side of things, I would have loved to have a little bit more from you when you talk briefly about, once again, your academic background as well as the professional side of things. But that's when we jumped in a little bit more about that internship experience. What you did very well is you really broke it down as far as the different experiences from those 4 different internships. You talked about, the skill sets that were needed, what you learned from that role. You talked a little bit more about, what you saw from that last internship as far as the leadership, the decision-making side of things. And you can tell that you really value that experience, but also, once again, how you were able to see some of those decisions being made, throughout your time here. So once again, I think that's one of those areas where you kind of really lit up to really be able to add more depth there. Jesse, I see you unmuted yourself. Question?
No. I'm happy to have you keep going. I don't worry. It
Okay,
wasn't a signal.
Okay, gotcha. So once again, I think those are great things that you did. So you also jumped right into why the MBA. You really talked a little bit more about supply chain consulting. I think one of the areas that I would have loved to have a conversation further about is, are there specific companies or firms that you're really interested in? Or is there a company, once again, when you talk about supply chain consulting, that really does a good job? And, once again, maybe it's, the company's culture, or once again, maybe it's the location, et cetera. So, if there aren't companies and firms that you have in mind, make sure that you continue to do some networking and research, whether it's to MBAs or whether it's to friends or family who are in the industry, because that's also an area that I would say be prepared to discuss a little bit further. I would say, one of the things that I'm a firm believer in is always having a backup plan about what that plan B looks like. So, when you talked about supply chain, consulting, once again, what happens if that industry, that company starts to fall apart? And I think about, once again, the last couple of years of how the tech industry has really struggled and all the layoffs. And there are many MBAs that were thinking about tech at the time, and you've had to pivot. Or we have MBAs out there who say consulting is where they want to go post MBA. They might get to their internship, and then their second year, they're re-recruiting. So the question is, have you thought about that backup plan, and what does that look like? And how will that school that you're applying to or that you enroll into, what are the necessary steps needed to really help you move forward with that plan B? I think, once again, just being able to share a little bit more about the personal side, about leadership, being a little bit vulnerable about, your personal situation with the stutter. I think it also shows a little bit more about who you are, what means, what's most important to you. I always tell candidates, as you go through this process, about being as authentic and genuine as possible. I'm sure, once again, there are certain questions that probably every business school is going to ask, which I've mentioned already out there. But, we really want to know about, what, what excites you, what challenges you, how do you see yourself making that impact within our organizations? You have to keep in mind, we are looking at thousands of applications for some programs, a couple hundred spots, some for, hundreds of spots out there. So how do you set yourself apart in this process is something that it's important. But once again, being authentic and genuine is something that I would say continue to do. I know that I kind of just threw the questions about the behavioral questions out there, but yeah, be prepared to answer those questions about challenges that you face, processes that you would, if you could go back and change something, how would you improve it? A big thing really is going to be about leadership. And, what happens if you are put into that core team that really challenges you, or you don't see eye to eye, or once again, you're identifying ways of improving a process or the structure of a club or organization. So really being able to come up with those solid examples. Once again, I know that that's something that you'd answered right off the bat, and but once again, be prepared for many questions like that. Definitely know about various clubs and organizations. And what I would say, I would encourage you to do is really give those solid examples. So, you had briefly mentioned about, like a consulting club. I would love to know more. Okay, when you say the consulting club, are there specific things within that club or organization that they're doing that really excites you? So, when someone mentions, for example, here at Cornell, I'm interested in marketing, and then they say, well, here at Johnson, I know that you have Battle of the Brands, where you are actually working with companies to market, specific products. And, it's a huge competition that happens, here on campus in front of the entire student body. Like, that's a solid example of things that we are doing here. Or, are there faculty members or, faculty members that you want to do research with or learn from? Like, giving those solid examples of the community leadership opportunity clubs and organizations are things that I would encourage you to do. So let me go ahead and stop there, Jesse. But I once again, Isaac, I think that it was a great conversation. Once again, I wish I had more information, but like I said, there might be questions that I might ask based off of what your recommender says. I see recommenders who say, this person is hard to work with. I get recommendations where recommenders say I do not recommend. And that might prompt me to ask more behavioral questions or to get an idea of what leadership looks like, or, your academic, aptitude to do well in business school. So once again, every interview is so different based off of what your background looks like.
That you touched on a good point where someone was asking about, are the Cornell interviews blind? And basically they are, right? But except you're saying these, as you were telling me, you can have these little notes that might come to the interviewer from the AdCom when you have those issues that you want them to touch on. Is that accurate? So kind of blind plus?
Yeah, so with our interviews, so know that interviews are either conducted by a member of our admissions team or one of our trained second-year students. They will have 1 year resume in front of them, but then they'll also have brief notes regarding your application. And the notes might highlight strengths, it might highlight areas of improvements. So for example, kind of going back to the question that was asked about the work experience in the application, just say, for example, on that resume, on that resume, I see that there is a 6-month gap, but also in the application, you don't explain why you left that role. As the initial reviewer, I may want to make sure that the interviewer clarifies why you actually left that role. So there might be a note in there just saying 6-month gap. Please make sure that you address why they left that role. So that's what the brief notes may highlight.
Well, it's incredible how fast this has
I
gone,
know.
and I really appreciate everything you've covered. So with the remaining time, does anyone have any questions? I've got so many things we didn't get to talk about, but what are any priorities that anyone watching would like answered? Anyone want to throw something in the chat, or you can even come off mute and go ahead and talk with Eddie?
Hi, Eddie. It's Antonio here. I would like to ask a specific question. I saw that MBA students of the 2-year full-time MBA program, they can take some classes offered through the Baker Master's program. If you could please explain a bit further, how is the process to pursue the graduating minor real estate during the 2-year MBA program of Johnson?
Yeah, absolutely. Antonio, thanks so much for once again just asking that question and sharing more. And as I had mentioned before, earlier on, that I think one of the things that I love about this program really is the flexibility of the curriculum. And know that with the Baker program in particular, here at Cornell, we have what we call the College of Business. So if you look at the College of Business as one umbrella, under that umbrella, there is the MBA program, there is the undergraduate business program, but then also there is the hotel school, our Nolan School. And know that the Baker program is within the Nolan School itself. So know that if you are looking at, and I think with the College of Business, it's really designed to really be able to give you the flexibility of taking courses easily amongst the 3 different programs. So if you're looking at taking courses through Baker, primarily in your 2nd year, our program, it's 60 credit hours to, of course, graduate with your MBA here, but about 15 of those credit hours you can take outside of Johnson in particular. So if there are specific courses within the real estate program in particular that you're interested in taking, you have that opportunity to take those courses. But also know that there is a real estate club, here at Johnson that is a partnership with our MBAs as well as our Baker students as well. So I hope that answers your question.
All right.
Sure, it answered perfectly. Just a follow-up.
So go ahead, Antonio.
Do you have to get a minimum GPA in previous classes to pursue the Baker Master classes, or no?
So of course there is definitely a minimum GPA of one getting the MBA and really graduating from the program itself. So and of course any of the courses that you are looking to take, our administration will let you know where you stand. But just know that, at the end of the day, this is an academic institution. Make sure that you prioritize your academics to really be able to, 1, graduate, most important, but 2, to be able to be approved to move forward with some of these different classes.
All right, we'll have to start finishing up there. Thank you, everyone, so much. Before we do, for anyone who is interested in working with me, I know it's interview season, so I'm very happy to help with any interview prep or any other a la carte service, or you want to do full service for round 2, round 3, just message me on my profile, and I will also send you a discount for 10% off. As well as I've got a really great document teaching you an interview self-preparation method. And oh yes, and we have to give the winner right before I go. I'm waiting for Amelia to send me who won. Okay, Antonio, actually, cool. Okay, Antonio, please message me. That's random. Later, and we'll talk about arranging a free hour of interview prep. I don't know what stage you're at in the process, but just message me. We'll figure it out. And let's just finish there with a huge thanks to Eddie. It's really been amazing. I wish we had a lot more time. I think there's a million more questions. Anything else you want to say in closing?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Jesse, thank you so much for your time. I love the work that I do. I love working with prospective candidates, and just the thought of you furthering your education, but also just thinking about doing it here at Cornell. And I know that there are members of our community who are always happy to chat with you about their experience as you're really thinking about, once again, what is the best program for you. But once again, continue to do your due diligence, your outreach, your attend events, as many events as possible, as you learn more about what program best fits you, but also hopefully that is Cornell at some point. The last thing that I will say is, in the chat, I did put my contact information. If you have any questions, if you want to jump on a half-an-hour call, I am happy to schedule some time with you over the coming weeks, just to talk about your profile, talk to you more about Johnson, etc., etc. I'm a little behind on emails, but I will get to it. But once again, that email address is in the chat. It's ea356@cornell.edu. Once again, that's ea356@cornell.edu.
Oh, thank you so much, everyone. And that's a very generous offer from Eddie. That's not something you get from all directors. So I hope anyone that is really interested in Cornell, and I hope more people became interested today in Cornell's long-term programs, as well as the new deferred program, which I imagine you'll be getting calls from some of the deferred applicants who are on the call today. So everyone, thanks again for joining us. I know it's a very long session. I really appreciate some of you who stayed all the way through the 90 minutes. So if you have other questions you want answered, you can message me, you can message Eddie. We'll try and make sure anything we didn't get to cover, we can help you out with. So with that, goodbye.